Hello and welcome. Yes, it's another Singer Futura. This is a Model 1000. Now, if you haven't seen the other videos, I can link them in up here somewhere. I did an assessment of 7 of the machines that I own, which are in various states of disrepair as such, and also did a 2-part series on restoring a Singer 2002, which went reasonably well, but didn't quite come out as a perfect restoration. There was one issue with the pattern stitches that I haven't got around to getting to the bottom of at this stage. I've already assessed this machine. This is a customer's machine. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a second. If you want to skip to the meat of the video, you can do so. Just I've broken it up into chapters, so down the bottom on the little running timeline you'll see it's broken up into chapters there. I do that with most of my videos. I've already assessed this machine to a point. I know that these buttons here are not working properly, and if you've seen the previous video you'll see that they're quite unreliable. As they age they get oxidized and the buttons don't respond anymore to the presses there. And you would have seen in the previous video, I took the board out of a 1000. This is out of a 1000 here. I did this as a test run actually off camera. Took this board out just so that when I did the restoration of the 2002 model I knew what I was doing. But I found out that this is slightly different to the 2002 model, so I didn't show how to get this one out. But I'll do that today so that you can see what's involved. It's a little bit different to the 2002 model. So effectively the electronic board sits down in behind here and just sits at about this level here. You can see where the lights are, sits about there, and then this little front fascia panel attaches, and that's where your buttons are there. And they go through to these little metal dome switches here, and they need cleaning up. Now, so the process is to lift, so take this fascia panel off here and release the board, so at least I can get it up high enough to do my little trick where I get very fine sandpaper in between these little contacts here and clean both inside surfaces there to make those respond. As I say, you can skip forward to any of those. And I've also noticed that when I tested the machine, it all sort of bunched up underneath, and the top thread was sort of spooling off the cone here too fast, and I noticed that the tension, although I've got the press foot down here, this tension here is too loose. There's just no tension on there whatsoever. So there's another little issue to sort out. That's what today's video will be about, but just a little background on this machine. Belongs to my customer Stephanie, and thank you very much, Stephanie, for allowing me to record this video on your machine here. And this is a very special machine to Stephanie. It belonged to her late mother. Stephanie has very fond memories as a child seeing her mum use this machine. This was one of the machines that her mother owned throughout her life, but it's the one that Stephanie remembers most from her childhood. So I thought I would go through and do some repairs and see how we go. This machine was bought in the UK, where Stephanie's from. His family's from Essex in the UK. And it came out to New Zealand when they moved out here, and she used it out here, and then I think they moved back to the UK, or went for a visit maybe, I think, back to the UK, and Stephanie's mum couldn't be without the machine, so she took it back with her. So it's been back and forward to the UK at least once. So it's done a bit of travelling, this machine. One thing I noticed, the difference between the models 1000s that I've got and this one is just a small thing really, but it's got a sticker here proudly saying made in West Germany by Singer. That looks like it's been added after the fact. It's something that's not on any of the machines that I've got, so maybe they did this in the UK. not sure, or for the European market, not too sure about that. Yeah, so the other thing that went with this one is the capacitor blue in the foot controller here, and you know, that's a common issue. I've sorted that out, so I've done videos on that as well. I'll try and link them in up in the corner here, otherwise I'll put links in the description down below. It came with the little accessory tray here. Got some of the accessories. These machines obviously came with a walking foot attachment. Most of the accessories for these machines have this walking foot included. I don't think it was an optional extra. I think it was included, as far as I can tell. And no lid, no case lid, although Stephanie may have that somewhere. It didn't come with the lid. It did come with the manual. So we'll Singer Futura manual, model 1000. I won't go through all of that, but that's, you know, quite a neat little manual. Yeah, so there's the walking foot there included in the accessories. There is a Singer model that actually does include a walking foot, a modern one, and that's the Singer Cosplay, the heavy duty Cosplay. Includes a walking foot. Or top feed, sometimes they're called even feed feet or top feed. Yeah. But yeah, just a pretty standard Singer manual. Very clear, very concise, lots of information. But what's really interesting is this sales brochure, which I thought was pretty cool. The Futura by Singer, the first sewing machine with an electronic brain. So yep, first electronic sewing machine. Electronically controlled pattern stitches. So this one's not electronically speed controlled. It's a standard speed controller, and it's electronically controlled pattern stitches. So the zigzag mechanism and the feed mechanism is controlled by electromechanical devices. Yeah, so this was the first one, and I think Elna followed up fairly quickly after this with their electronic machines. Not exactly sure of the timeline of that, but yeah, this is a nice, it's sort of a textured brochure. I'm not sure if you can see that in the light there. It's kind of a thick textured paper. It's really nice, and it opens up, you know, to this here. Oh, I love this. Yeah, press a button and the brain obeys you. There, it does what you tell it. Oh, the brain. This is all textured here as well. And then that opens right up. I'll move the camera back just a bit here so you can get an overview of the whole thing here. Jeez, I had to move this. I had to move the camera right to the other side of the room. This brochure is massive. When you open it up like this, that is really neat. I love that. I'll get you a close look at the bits and pieces there, so pretty cool. I was going to say I won't go through all of this, but we might have a quick look around at some of this here. As I say, you can skip forward easily. I've used chapters or indexing in this video. Paris point stitch is a way of sewing on appliques. That's this one here. It's Paris point, yeah, so I would have called that like a blanket stitch, but yeah, okay, Paris point. Dog, so you've got dog. Press a button and sew this charming little dog. Futura, with its electronic brain, is the only sewing machine in the world with which you can do it. The dogs are natural for children's clothes. Little dog here. So yeah, they're basically saying that you know, the electronics allow these fancy designs here, whereas the older style cams probably wouldn't have allowed this here, although you can do some pretty fancy stuff with the cams. I know Elna's got one that's got little ducks. So yeah, so the Elna Supermatic, the Star Series Supermatic, has a cam for doing the little ducks. So yeah, I mean, you can do a bit with the mechanical machines, but the electronic ones can do just a bit more, and you don't have to have a whole bunch of cams installed into the machine, or a big bunch of cams separate that you have to install individually. All of these designs are stored in the memory of the machine, so that's the advantage with the electronics. Tacking, yeah, tacking, this is a very handy feature. This does a stitch, a very long stitch, so you know, really good for like tailor tacking or just basting. It's really handy. Good for test fitting and things like that. So you can do a test seam. You can assemble a garment, you know, temporarily as such with this tacking or basting stitch here, and really good for fitting and experimenting, things like that. Yeah. So we've got Rick Rack, that's a zigzag, stretch type zigzag here, and straight stitch, you know. Icicle stitch. What's that one? Oh yeah, icicle. It's that blue one here. Icicle shaped embroidery stitch could also be a decorative hem stitch. Zigzag, basic zigzag there. Ribbon stitch, surf, leaves, honeycomb, that's honeycomb there, that's quite a good stretch stitch there. We have maxi stretch stitch, that's a straight stitch there. This is the Futura showing off its twin needles here. So you can twin needle here, different colours. Have they used different colours there? Might be slightly different colours. Twin needling, scallop, arrowhead, what's this one? M-shaped elastic stitch. This pretty one is called bead stitch. This here, it's got little flowers here. And you've got the faggoting embroidery stretch stitch, used for classic faggoting, or use it for attaching lace, braid, ribbon, or any other trims. It's also useful for mending and attractive for quilting. Chain stitch, yeah, chain stitch is really handy as well. So chain stitch, because it's so easily undone, is the stitch favoured for temporary hems and tucks for growing children. So yeah, if you've got fast growing children, you could have yeah, you know, stitched a temporary hem or a tuck in this stitch here, and when the child grows a little bit more, you can just unpick one end of the chain here and just unravel the stitching here, and you know, let the tuck out or let the hem down or whatever. Yeah, pretty handy. Zigzag point, so we've got over edge stitch here, and then we've got a couple of different size buttonholes available. Called Greek key, this stitch isn't just a pretty pattern, that's this squarish type one here. You could choose it to be your hem stitch for items like curtains, placemats or samplers. This is what I would call a, so they've got here the this stitch is multi-stitch zigzag. Use it rather than basic zigzag for mending tears, sewing on patches, neatening seams on in fine fabric. That's what I would call like a 3-step zigzag. So 3 steps each, zig and zag, and yeah, so otherwise known as what I pronounce as tricot stitch, and I've just been corrected by a couple of French speaking people, and thank you very much for that. Tricot is how tricot is actually pronounced, tricot. And tricot is a type of fabric from what I understand, and they recommended using this tricot type stitch, or what I call 3-step zigzag, on those sorts of fabrics. Yeah, so they had a 2-way stretch as far as I know. And then we've got a blind stitch here, Only Singer Star, a trademark of the Singer company, could invent it. It's a bit of propaganda, isn't it? It had to be Singer, the people who taught the world to sew. Now they've taught a sewing machine to think. And in all your life, you've never enjoyed a machine so capable and yet so easy to handle. You've never had such help in making things. Good one, Singer. Nice. The brain of the Futura. Here we go. This is the electronic brain that the Singer Futura thinks with. Smaller than a thimble. It's the most significant technological advance since the Singer sewing machine. There we go. Let's stay in focus there. Or microchip there. I would assume that doesn't have the memory. I guess the patterns are stored somewhere else. They'll be stored in a ROM somewhere probably, I'm guessing. So I don't think that's probably got any onboard ROM. That's probably just doing the processing. Press a button and the brain obeys you. The brain even knows when to stop. Yeah, so that's the little buttonhole sensor lever there. Detects, the length of the buttonhole. Pretty handy. I won't go into too much detail with that at this stage, but pretty handy. And here we've got the showing off the free arm here. Awkward sleeves are no longer awkward. Just press down the hinged section at the back and you have got an arm for getting at sleeves, trouser legs or any other awkward bits. Pretty handy. See better, sew better. Another Singer invention. The needle slants towards you so you're closer to the action. Yeah, that is really good. I like that. Quite a few Singer machines do have that. Slant-o-matic, I think they called that. Pretty handy. The bobbin winds itself inside the machine. Singer also invented the only bobbin in the world that winds itself inside the machine so you don't have to unthread the machine when the bobbins run out. The horizontal spool for holding your cotton reel, another Singer invention, is also a boon. The reel can't twitch, the thread can't tangle, and tension is trouble-free. Yep, pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, I quite like this system. It is pretty handy. I've shown this in other videos. Self-winding bobbin. Pretty handy. Mr. Kahili, is it? So what is that, a phone number? So we've got £447 cash with a £90 deposit, 30 months at £16.13. I'll do some conversions on that and see if we can figure out roughly how much that would be in today's money. So that'll be British pounds. Yeah, that's interesting. So being paid off over 30 months there at $90. So let's calculate that out. Just do a little calculation here. So we've got 447.17 in cash, and we've got a deposit of $90.17. So take away 90.17, subtract that, $357 to pay. And then we've got $16.13 at 30 months. And they're paying over the 30 months $483, a difference of $126 in interest. Pounds, sorry. Yeah, 126.90 pounds interest over 30 months. The first thing I want to have a quick look at is the tension. What's up with the tension here? So let's just pop the case off. You just hold that lever down there, slide the top lid to the right if you're looking at the front, left if you're looking at the back there. There's the lid. What's this? Service exchange, motor guarantee. So has the motor been swapped on this? Service only, 2nd of the 10th, 1984. So I'm just wondering if the tension release is jammed on, and that's why this tension is playing up here. Let's have a wee look in the in the side, in this panel here, just remove there's 2 screws. I won't go into too much detail, but I've shown this in the previous videos, but there's 2 screws, yeah, just there. Take these 2, just loosen these, there's 2 Allen key, or sometimes I think they're flathead screws, but these ones are Allen key grub screws. Just loosen those. I've shown this in more detail in a previous video. And there's another one under here. Just get this face plate off here. Just needs to be loosened. And that should pop off. Pop that off there. And that might allow me to see what's going on here. Yeah, so I'll get you a close look here. So the way a tension release mechanism works is when you raise the presser foot, there's a tension release mechanism that releases top tension so that you can pull the work out from under the presser foot easily without sort of bending the needle or breaking the thread. It just releases all of the top tension. You might be able to see here when I raise the press foot here, this shaft in behind here, see that moving up here? But the device that it's pushing up is stuck up. That's this lever here. This is jammed up. And that's what's holding the tension open here. This little plate sits in between the tension discs. That's for twin needling. You know, you'd put thread either side of this plate here. And so you can tell the press foot's down, and I can tell there that there's no tension. And that is this little lever here. So this mechanism is seized up, I would say. Let's have a closer look at the rest of it here. So this is the lever here that's jammed. Comes across, and there's a hinge here. So I think that you know, if I push that down, it's going to apply tension back to this here, and we'll get some oil onto that. You can see there's some corrosion, surface corrosion on the parts here. So you know, maybe the machine's been a little bit damp at some stage while it's been in storage. So yeah, I'll give it a little bit of oil and we'll see if that sorts it out. I'm not going to go through and do a full service right now. I'll do that later, but I just want to get the machine up and running. So yeah, see this? It's springing back there now, but I'd like to just get a little bit of oil into this here. Just on that bearing, those bearings there. And now that should work when I lift the foot lifter. And I can feel there's a lot more tension on this here now. And if I run thread through there, I'm sure that there will be tension there. Yeah, so that's good. So that's that problem sorted. And the only other problem is the buttons, as I say, these buttons here. And as I mentioned before, I did pull the board out of one of these, but I didn't show it on camera because I was doing a dry run really, just so I knew what I was doing. And it turned out the 2002 model, that's a model number, that's not the year it was made. The 2002 model is different. So I will show you now what is required to remove this panel here, or actually raise this whole electronic board enough to remove this panel here. That's the front panel, and that allows you to get into the little buttons there and clean them up. So what I found was the 1000 model, and I assume the 1100 model is the same. These are made in Germany, whereas the 2002 model was made in Japan, and that's why they're different. And I found with this model here, it's a little bit harder to get this top piece out and a lot easier to get the bottom piece loose to allow the board to come up. But on the 2002 model, this part is very easy to remove but the bottom part is very difficult to release. You've got to remove the motor. It's not too big a deal, but just a bit more of a pain than this one. Let's just remove some of these connections here. This board, this is a separate board on top here. It's got to come out. Now these connectors are keyed here, so there's no chance of getting them wrong. And this connector here, isn't that? It's that one there, that one there, and these connections, spade connectors here. One purple one on the right there. Let's remove these two black ones here. And then I've got a red one here. There. So I might just mark one of these so that these, I'm not sure if they can be swapped or not, so I don't want to get those mixed up. Just in case, I will put a mark on the right hand one there. So get these off here. One. Just there. And this one. So on the 2002 model, there's nowhere near as many connections like this to remove, and that's keyed there as far as I can see. That's so that you can't get it mixed up, I guess. Okay, move those out of the way, and we'll remove these two screws here and get the board off here. There. This one's got a little spring washer on it. That one. Okay, and this board should just pop out like so. Power supply board, I would say. Okay, and then we can loosen these, or take these two screws here out. Or loosen that plate, I should say. Yeah, over this side here, there's this mount here, which I'll loosen that. I'll just laid the machine onto its back there. I'll get this bottom plate off here, and then I can show you what part needs to be released. It's a single screw, I think, from memory. Let's get these two here out. Just in here, you see a screw just here. That's the one that clamps the board to the chassis of the machine, the electronic board. And if I should be able to get, yeah, just being careful there because it's on a slight angle. So I should be able to just release that. That releases the tension. In my first attempt to do this, I hadn't removed one of these boards before, so I ended up taking off a little bit too much. I took out these two screws and removed this here along with the whole board from the machine. I didn't really need to do that. All I really needed to do was loosen this screw here, which I just did in here. And so this part here gets left behind. And you can see that the board is sandwiched between this part here that I've taken out of here unnecessarily, and it gets sandwiched in between that and this here. And loosening this screw here allows you to pull this part out. So effectively what I've done is I've loosened that screw there, and then just should be able to pull that part. Yeah, see that releases these two parts here. That white goo, that's just heatsink compound. And so now, you know, this board's free at the bottom. So I didn't really need to take this whole clamp here out. But anyway, first time, so I know now. And if you saw, I think it was part 1 of the revival of the 2002 model machine, you'll see that it's not so easy to get to the releasing screws. They're on an angle and you can't get a screwdriver straight onto them, so the whole motor's got to come out. But you know, taking the motor out of one of these is not that big a deal. It's not a huge job. But this just is a little bit easier. Just before you pull the board out, you'll see that little plate down in here. There's a sort of a curved plate, and that plate needs to be down at the bottom. So you can see it's sort of a half round plate. Make sure that plate there, that's that one there right at the tip of my finger, it's got a screw in it there. Not sure if you can see that. That plate there, you see if you keep turning, it disappears underneath the shaft there. That's the position you want to have the machine in before you pull this here up, because there's a little sensor here. You'll notice there's this little sensor here, and if the plate is in between the sensor and you try and pull this board up, it will bend this or stop you from pulling the board out. So you just need to rotate the plate so that it's no longer in between here. Yeah, this is quite loose here. Yeah, so now this comes up, right? And effectively you only really need to get this up far enough, like that. Probably that far will do. So all you really need to do is get it up that far. I can probably release that now, there. Because all you have to really do is remove that screw, that one, and that one, this one here, and there's another one under here, and that allows you to take the front panel off, this front panel here. So these screws, they hold that front black fascia panel onto the electronic board, and the panel, the black panel, has the buttons on it, and they protrude through the back really and press on those little metal domes that I showed you before. Just try not to drop any of these. Extra one just in behind there. And there we go. There's the front panel off there. Okay, and there we can just let the board sit back down there. Now there's no real need to remove the board, you know, any further than that. You just have to be a little bit careful of these LED lights here. They can be pushed out of position quite easily. I'll just cut in some footage from the previous video, not this one, I'll do this off camera, but basically you peel this little plastic cover here off, and then you can take this little rubber sort of spacer off here. Well, you don't take it off, just peel it back a little bit, and that allows you to get your sandpaper down in between these contacts here. It's very fine sandpaper, so you know, cleaning, contact cleaner didn't really do anything at all. Made no difference. So I found that the only way to really recover these is just to use fine sandpaper to do both sides of the terminal. So I'll just put in footage from the other video there just to quickly show you what's involved in doing that. And it's a matter of going through Probably not all of them, but I did. As a matter of course, I went through and I did all of the buttons. Because some of these least used buttons here, they'll probably respond reasonably well still, but these are the most commonly used buttons down this side here, and these ones get quite a hammering and they're probably oxidized up, so I would definitely do these ones. But maybe you could even test before you do this job which ones need cleaning, which ones are not as responsive. But as a matter of course, I will do the whole lot here. So once I've done these three, I just work my way across to these three here, and then I stick all this back down again because the glue's still there, it's still reasonably tacky, and then I just peel back this end here and do these three. And yeah, it takes a little while, but it's not too bad. So I'll put in a little bit of footage here, and then I'll come back once I've done this off camera and go ahead and assemble this back into the machine. I've got this 280 grit sandpaper. It's pretty fine. Just want to slit the sandpaper in between the contacts here. So I've got the sandpaper facing, so the gritty end is facing the rear part of the switch there, and I'm just going to push and hold the switch gently and drag the sandpaper through backwards, and then release and just drag it through a few times, because they are metal contacts. And then flip it around. Oops. I tried contact cleaner alone and that wasn't really good enough. And then I'll just flip the sandpaper around, slot it in under here to give this side of the contact, the underside of this here, a clean. And then I'll give it a small spray with contact cleaner there, just to make sure there's no contaminants in there. And then I'll just hit it with the meter there, see what we get now. Yeah, see? That's the reverse button. That's the one that was very difficult to activate. And you can see there that that's pretty reliable. You know, it just takes a very light touch. Okay, I've cleaned all the switch contacts here and ready to put the machine back together there. I've just noticed that I've sort of bent a couple of these little LEDs slightly out of position. They're pretty easy to bend, so I just want to make sure when I put the panel back on here that the LEDs show through the little windows there. So just oops, put that the right way around. There's a switch here that mates up with a little plastic part here, goes into this switch here, and this switch comes out, protrudes out through the front there, just where my thumb is there. Okay, so we'll just put that back on there, swing it around, and we'll get these screws back in the back here. Oh yeah, so just looking in the front here, you can see the little LEDs are lining up in the windows there. Okay, that's all the screws in there. Just go around and give them a final nip up there, and just install the mount screw there for that one there. Just yeah, or just also bear in mind that this plate here needs to be out of the way before you put this back down. But that's all looking good there. So let's get the mount screws back on here. Yeah. Okay. And before I forget, let's just tip the machine back and get the other screw done up down here. Okay, this board here goes back on. Okay, everything's free there. That should be fine. Just nip those up there. And then connect everything back here. And then that one finally plugs there. And we should be pretty well set to go there. The lid back on, just position it to the right slightly and then push it to the left, and it just clips into place there. Okay, ready for the test here. I'll just quickly thread it up. Pretty easy to thread these machines. Okay, let's see what we've got here, eh? Let's power it on here. And as per normal, there's no lights on the panel. That's normal. So we hit straight stitch there, and you'll see the little light light up there. Okay, just got a scrap of material here. Let's see how we go. Now that we've got tension and got working buttons. Yeah, nice. Stitch length, let's have a look. So that's, yep, stitch length is working nicely there. Reverse, yep. I don't have to push very hard on that, that's good. Zigzag, let's try zigzag here. Now we've got a narrow zigzag, let's take it up. So this dial on the left here, that's your stitch width. You've got a dial on the right there for stitch length, and you've got your balancing dial here in the middle. So we should have, we're on the widest, what are we? I'll go to the widest zigzag there. And that's not doing anything. Certainly not the widest zigzag, so we've got a problem there. It's not zigzagging properly. It's only doing a very narrow zigzag. I'll have to sort that out. So you're just doing a very narrow, it's on the widest stitch width, so something's not quite right there. Hopefully all of the connections are all properly connected. I'll double check all that and come back. I checked all the connections to the top board here and also down into the main electronic board, and everything looks fine there. So I think I'll leave it at this stage, and what I'll do is I'll need to figure out whether it's the board that's causing the problem, or maybe you know, is it this actuator here that's causing the problem. I'm not really too sure, but what I need to do is get a machine that's a good known machine, so one that all the parts work in, and then I can start swapping parts out of a good known machine and put it into this one. So I'll probably first of all start by just going for the easy part to start with, probably be the electronic board. I'll just swap that out and see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't make any difference, well then I would suspect possibly this here. I might measure some voltages and whatnot down here just to see what we're getting at the actuator arm there. So yeah, keep an eye out for another video on that. I'll get a little bit further hopefully with this and get it finished off. But in the meantime, I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for watching. Thanks again to my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, take a look at patreon.com/sewing machines.